It's called Dutch disease when a country has so much mineral wealth that a boom in its resource sector squeezes the rest of the economy. Here in Australia, we look like a textbook case, and it's local manufacturing that's being smashed. Bluescope Steel's announcement today that it's quitting the export business will put 1,000 Australians out of work. To prevent more job losses across the manufacturing sector, unions want the government to force big resource companies to use more Australian products in their projects. Stephen Long reports.
They've been forging steel at Port Kembla since 1928. The blast furnaces lighting up the night sky, an emblem for the region, a beacon for Australian manufacturing. But the fires are dwindling. Bluescope will cease exporting steel from Port Kembla in 2 months, with the loss of 800 jobs. In Victoria, the company's Western Port mill is also shutting down, and 200 more jobs will go. At Port Kembla, there'd been rumours for months that the cuts were coming, but that didn't dim the pain.
It's really going to be hard to go in and face the guys and try and pump them up to say, look, it's not all over, when I think it is, that's the problem. I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel at this stage. I hope I'm wrong, I really hope I'm wrong, but it's just really hard and devastating to do.
It's a different story in the mining districts, where men, women and mammoth machines are operating around the clock, digging out iron ore and coal at rates never seen before. 1 billion tonnes of minerals a year, enough to fill up 3,000 huge bulk cargo ships. But the fates of the two industries are linked.
What these job losses really show, it's a classic case of Australia going through the resource curse, or also known as Dutch disease. And this is when you have a mineral boom, it drives your currency sky high, and that crunches the rest of your economy. All those other export sectors, tourism, education and manufacturing, all these industries we built up in the post-tariff era are really copping it now because of this essentially unhinged degree of mining development we've got underway.
The long-time economics journalist and author Paul CLEARY has just written a book criticising Australia for mismanaging the resources boom by squandering the hundreds of billions of dollars in windfall revenue and allowing a resources rush that's plundering the nation's natural endowment.
I think there's way too much, and it simply reflects the fact that we don't have the tax regime that we should have in place. We don't have a proper resource rent tax. If we had the sort of resource rent tax that Mr Rudd had proposed, one that's much more robust, would rake in the revenue, companies wouldn't be losing their heads, falling over each other, trying to sink hundreds of billions of dollars into new capacity and really causing these imbalances in our economy.
10 years ago, Bluescope Steel was making huge profits. 10 years ago, Bluescope Steel was one of the highest payers of dividends on their shares.
But that was back in 2001, when the Aussie dollar hit a low of 48 US cents, and the general rule was 2 for 1 against the greenback. After falling during the GFC, the currencies climbed to parity and beyond. It hit a high this year, just shy of $1.11 US cents. Iron ore prices have also soared to new highs, and the price of coking coal has skyrocketed. For the steel industry, it's a double curse. Record prices for the basic ingredients of steel making and a high currency that's killing export competitiveness.
It's a dollar, it's a dollar. The fact that Bluescope is leaving the export market is solely to do with currency.
But it's not just steel or just manufacturing. The high dollar means fewer tourists, fewer overseas students, and a hit to a host of industries that export or compete with imports made cheaper by the high currency.
And the consequence of this will be left with a high wage, high productivity resource sector. There'll be a hollowing out of the middle, and we'll be left with the rump of low productivity, low wage industries.
Those feeling the pain are now calling on government to demand more of the miners. The steel union boss Paul Howes argued today that mining companies should be made to source steel and other components locally.
The big miners are the greedy big miners. These are the same miners who bitch and moan every time they have to pay a different tax, have a different regulation, complain about the unions, but they can't do anything to reinvest back in their community.
Graham Cray is the chairman of Bluescope Steel and a member of the Reserve Bank board. He says that's a step too far.
I think would contravene WTO requirements. I'm not proposing to go that far.
But he's deeply unhappy that resources projects and even government jobs are using European or Asian specifications that exclude local manufacturers.
There should be a requirement that the specifications and the tendering should be in a way that enables Australian companies to participate, and if they're competitive, they've got a chance of winning a share of the business.
Other countries around the world, Norway, Chile, even tiny East Timor, have been much smarter in the way they've managed their resource revenue.
A well-designed, well-communicated mining tax would have got community support, resource company support. The use of it then, though, I think is about ensuring the transition, not so much from slowing down resources itself and the investment in resources, but making sure that the government had some funds to utilise in assisting other industries such as manufacturing and tourism to transition into the new economy.
As Asia industrialises, there's talk of the mining boom going on and on, a resources rush that never ends. But we will hit the bottom of the quarry, and what kind of economy will be left then? Decisions made now will determine whether the gains are squandered or whether the windfall becomes a lasting legacy.
And the federal government responded today with a $100 million injection into Bluescope Steel. There may be more assistance to come for the manufacturing sector as a whole.